If you've been watching my last two broadcasts, then you know I've been on a journey as of late. You can click on the link above or at the end of this video so that you can watch the two episodes in full. But my journey really began with the trek of a lifetime to the Himalayan mountains in Nepal, the birthplace of Prince Siddhartha. I was there on assignment to film American adventurer Bill Burke in his third attempt to climb his own mountain. No, literally, his own mountain. Burke, his family name, Kong, meaning mountain. It would also serve as an introduction, if you would, to the origins of Siddhartha, although in truth, just a background player to what I was really there to film. Ultimately, Siddhartha's legend would inform and mirror my own journey that I had unwittingly already started. And like the Nepali prince, I would launch on my own awakening, my own eightfold path. I'm Jeff Oppenheim, and I invite you to join me today for tomorrow's journey. Trekking through the Himalayas to reach Kong Base Camp would bring me through new challenges and certainly to new heights. 6,942 meters on top of the world, to be precise, or 22,775 feet if you're metrically challenged. But inside, I was anything but on top of the world. I was on assignment, having accepted a job to film Bill Burke and Noel Hanna's excursion into Nepal from Kathmandu to base camp, and ultimately a dangerous scramble up a yet-to-be-climbed mountain. Although a somewhat avid hiker, enjoying treks through the woods and mountains of upstate New York City, the Adirondacks, even the hills of California, I wasn't really a climber. As such, I had to learn these basic mindfulness practices in order to survive, literally. You see, altitude sickness can kill even the healthiest climber within less than 24 hours, or so I learned from avid climber, mountain man extraordinaire, and local native-born Sherpa, Dawa Stephen Sherpa, who runs Asian Trekking and helped us with our trek.
To do trekking, you do need to be a little bit mentally strong, because the first few days, as your body gets used to it, you do need to have this certain resilience just to get over the muscle aches, you know. Probably haven't walked 6 hours a day in a long, long time, if ever. That's one thing. But then as you get higher into the mountains, your body also needs to acclimatize literally to the altitude. And you cannot just force yourself, you know, you can't just take a helicopter to high altitude, say 15,000 feet or something, and just say, well, I'm just going to avoid trekking. Because if you drop yourself literally at that altitude, you are going to start to die very, very quickly. Within a few hours, you'll be very sick, and probably before the night passes, you'll be dead.
If I wanted to complete the trek, let alone finish the job that I was hired to do, I had to adapt and survive. The simple mindfulness practices I had to put in place were one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Everyone goes at their own pace. Communicate with your team members. Stay responsible for everyone. Be respectful to your environment. It would not be until I got back from Nepal and my other related 48 days of travel that I was forced to face the problems I had run away from. You see, I was trying to stay strong to the previously unseen or unacknowledged pressures in my life, unwinding my failed and now seemingly embittered marriage of many years, accepting the anger of now grown kids who, in addition to the pangs of liberation and the normal push away that would go on as part of that process, they were now, rightly or wrongly, taking sides, uncertain as what had caused the seismic shift in their otherwise, up until now, happy home. And in the center of it all, my own financial obligations, failures, perhaps mistrust in partners and subsequent wrongdoings. The greater journey now in front of me had its own moments of self-doubt and fears, similar to what I had experienced on the mountain, but now seemingly with greater and more significant consequences. It was only then that I slowly realized the same principles helping me maneuver my way on the mountain were the same ones I probably should apply to the mess that had become my life. On the mountain, you are to communicate, to let your fellow team members know how you're doing, honestly. Men, in particular, are often not good at asking for help or direction. As a married man, I especially felt the need to keep everything private. And it was certainly the model my wife kept as well. Compounding matters, we weren't a family that had a religion or followed a particular faith. The closest spiritual influence was a Buddha that sat on the shelf of our living room, watching everything, everyone. It had more of a connection to me, I suppose, than anyone else, in that the statue had belonged to my father. So Buddha sat in quiet testimony, more to my past than to my present state of mind. Thus, I felt alone in my struggles, in my fight to survive, to understand the issues and diagnose the problems, the causes, the need. Strangely enough, many of the symptoms of depression match the symptoms of altitude sickness, as if the universe wants to tell us our greatest depths and our most staggering heights are one and the same. And in both, you lose any promise of tomorrow, absorbed in the panic of today. So I knew I had to get back to those simple principles practiced on the mountain. One step at a time. Communicate. Everyone goes at their own pace. Be respectful to your environment. Stay responsible for everyone. When we were going up the mountain, there was an Irishman named Noel Hanna.
I was a police officer for 15 years. I was serving in Northern Ireland in just the end of the Troubles, really, in the late 80s through to the 90s. Ceasefire came in 96, and I started off as an ordinary police officer, but then went into an anti-terrorist unit. And then the last 5-6 years I was a canine officer with my dog Tango. Whenever you were in the anti-terrorist unit, you always had to work as a team. There was never really an individual. I was looking after somebody else's back and somebody else was looking after my back, and if you didn't work as a team, you really ended up dead. It was that stage where I was beginning to lose interest and lose the adrenaline in the police force. So I sort of transferred my adrenaline from the police force to my climbing and adventure racing. And since 1997, the last 20 years, I've been doing climbing and adventure racing all over the world.
He helped set the pace and kept the line. An excellent climber and adventurer. Like many of his countrymen, he was as swift as wit, as he was sure of foot and stride. I realized he kept my measure through humor and playfulness. He knew I loved a turn of a phrase or a good joke, so he was testing how sharp I stayed throughout our 80-plus kilometer uphill hike, and he did it in the most inconspicuous of ways, allowing male pride to stay well intact. Back home, in the midst of my personal climb, or more aptly, my dissension, it was my mother who intervened and held the line. Obviously, she knew me. She recognized something was going on, but I had fallen victim to that age-old adage that the mother of the groom loses a son. Fortunately, she stayed the course. She encouraged me once again, as if back when I was a baby, to take one step at a time, just like the rule on the mountain. It was through the gracious support of but a handful of friends that I was then empowered to take my next steps. One of them in particular, a brother, albeit from another mother, Byron, a friend of over 30 years, really like an older brother. Family, and he himself had been through a few of life's twists and turns. Like Bill, always slightly in front of me on the mountain, setting an easy pace, occasionally turning round with a smile that gently nudged me along, reminded me always, even in his own steps, that sometimes the path was a little rocky or rough, but with steady mindfulness, will get there. Byron, like Bill, was deeply spiritual, but without the bombastic piety. It was there, yours for the taking if you wanted it, but each of them had that very firm and quiet belief that each person must come to it themselves, whatever it was for them. Another friend, Leah, from back in my high school days, who I had lost touch with almost completely, except for, of course, social media, had suddenly resurfaced in my life. At the time, she was going through her own highs and lows within her world, life in general, the loss of a business, and the loss of her mother. Mom had been a guidance counselor. No, I take that back. Not just any guidance counselor, the go-to person for any problem any of us were having. Her door was always open. And back in our days in high school, that meant so much. Proving to be very much her mother's daughter, Leah scooped me up, fed me, and strategically put me back on a team. Well, I felt of purpose again, of service again, a lot like I felt on the mountain. But it would be a soon-to-be new friend, Alibe, that would offer me the next critical stage, not just of healing, but of understanding the journey forward. It would be through her balanced good graces, not just keeping a mindful eye on me, but also this lovely invitation, trusting as it was, to help her along her journey. In particular, at one point, to find a deeper connection to Buddha, a Buddha and centering force in her life. In helping her, I continued to be of service and of purpose, to help myself, to understand that I had a foundation here, I just fell away from it, to understand that there was so much knowledge there that I was able to offer her. There was even the very gorgeous asset of Buddha himself sitting all this time on my living room shelf, as he had been for so many years, just keeping his mindful eye on all that was going around. Suddenly, I was beginning to realize I had the ability to heal within me if I kept following those mindful practices learned and applied on the mountain. Somehow I was once again pushing towards the summit. I was on a righteous pathway with all my friends, all of us helping each other and being mindful of each other, and with that goal of reaching the peak together. When suddenly, the global pandemic hit. I'm Jeff Oppenheim, and I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll watch the other episodes, 2 before this one, and certainly, please take the time to like, share with a friend, and definitely subscribe, and click on through to the next episode in Buddha's journey.